The house no one wanted to enter. Full chills, I whispered under my breath as we stepped in front of the old house. Not because of anything dangerous, not because of any supernatural threat, but because of the history. The kind of history that stains a place so deeply that people avoid even looking at it. For years, this house sat quietly on a suburban street, aging in the shade of taller homes around it. But those who knew its story, they never drove past it slowly. They never lingered. Some wouldn't even speak about it. And tonight, we were walking straight through the front door. We were here with two guests, friends who swore they'd never join us on an investigation of this scale. And now they were standing beside us, staring up at the house that had terrified an entire community. "Bro, what are we doing here?" one of them muttered, half laughing, half panicking. "History," I said. "We're here for history." Because this wasn't just any house. This was the location of one of the most documented and debated hauntings ever recorded, a case that investigators, researchers, and skeptics still argue about decades later. Back in the 1970s, a family lived here whose story became so sensational, so widely discussed, that it reached national attention. No one could explain the strange activity they reported: sudden noises, unexplained cold spots, objects shifting on their own, and sightings of shadowy figures that appeared without warning. The family was overwhelmed. Neighbors became terrified. And eventually, local researchers, spiritual advisors, and even historical consultants stepped in to help the family understand what was happening. Some believed the events. Some thought the family exaggerated. Others claimed they misinterpreted environmental factors or stress. But regardless of belief, one truth remained. Something inside this house changed them forever. And we were the first investigative team to be granted full access in almost 40 years. As the cameras rolled, we walked toward the front steps. A couple leaving a nearby house stopped to watch us. "You know what happened there, right?" the woman asked. "A family lived in that home once, and something followed them for years." She didn't elaborate. She didn't have to. Locals didn't talk about details, only warnings. Inside the house, the air was cooler than outside. The living room looked shockingly normal: a simple sofa, framed photos, soft lamps. Nothing theatrical, nothing staged. And that's what made the atmosphere so unsettling. This was not a tourist spot or museum. People lived here. People slept in these rooms. People walked this hallway every single day. History wasn't polished or decorated here. It was simply present. We moved through the rooms, documenting the layout. The old staircase framed by wooden railings, the small kitchen where unexplained activity had been reported decades earlier, and the narrow hall that connected both sides of the original duplex. Every corner felt stagnant, like the air hadn't moved in years. "This feels like any other house," Sketch whispered. "That's what makes it worse," Rug answered. "If something happened here, it happened in an ordinary space. That's what makes it real." We began reviewing the original case files. The historical notes described a large family, parents, children, and the grandparents, who had all reported unexplained phenomena. The activity escalated gradually, starting with subtle noises, mild temperature drops, and strange electrical malfunctions. Over time, the occurrences increased. Not dangerous, just persistent. Unsettling. Enough to disrupt sleep, routines, conversations, and ultimately the emotional stability of the home. The family tried everything: home repairs, spiritual consultations, environmental testing. But nothing explained the pattern. Eventually, the case became so widely discussed that researchers from across the country visited the home. Among them were some of the most respected names in 20th century paranormal investigation, individuals known for their meticulous documentation and cautious approach. Their findings didn't claim anything harmful, but they did confirm consistent patterns of unexplained events. And now, almost half a century later, we were retracing their steps. At the staircase, our motion-activated microphone picked up a soft creaking sound. Not dangerous, not threatening, just unexpected enough to make all of us freeze. "You heard that?" someone whispered. We all nodded silently. We weren't even upstairs yet. And the house was already awake. Echoes in the walls. The house may have looked ordinary, but as soon as we crossed the threshold and stepped into its dim hallway, the air changed. I couldn't place it at first. Maybe the stillness, or the subtle drop in temperature, or the way the light seemed diffused under its own weight. Whatever it was, we all felt it. "Feels heavier than yesterday," Sketch whispered as we gathered our gear in the foyer. We nodded and moved deeper in, our cameras capturing every board and banister, every photo frame and scuffed corner. If you were watching from outside, it looked like an everyday home. But we knew better. Because we were here to find the ripple in time, the unexplained echoes nobody else cared to investigate further. Our first stop was the kitchen. According to the historical report, this had been a frequent site of odd incidents, utensils shifting on their own, footsteps when no one was there, and the recurring smell of something metallic. It all began subtly here, decades ago. Today, the faint odor was still there, a scent faint but distinct, like iron fleeting on the breeze. I inhaled it cautiously. None of us said anything. We didn't need to. Instead, we set up equipment. Motion sensors, temperature loggers, and a directional mic pointed at the ceiling. The history told us the family had tried to document the events themselves, small tape recorders, simple home cameras. The files showed a mountain of detail, vague outlines in windows, shadows in doorways, disturbances with no physical explanation. Sketch tapped his tablet. "Audio feed shows a low noise," he paused. "But I'm not sure what caused it." We leaned forward. The mic captured a low hum, almost like a mechanical hum, but the kitchen has no substantial machinery. The house's plumbing and wiring are old and inert. I reached a hand out to touch the wall. My fingertips felt a slight vibration. "What is that?" Rugg asked, eyes wide. "No idea," I said. "But I feel it too." We stayed silent a moment, listening. Then there it was, a sharp tap against the ceiling, followed by a quiet scrape, as if something had dragged across the drywall. My heart rate jumped. "Something just moved above us," I said. We reviewed the feed later and saw a tiny ripple of shadow drifting across the ceiling, nothing big, but enough to raise the hair on our necks. We left the kitchen and ascended the narrow staircase toward the upstairs hallway. The stairs creaked under each step, yet felt ancient beyond their years. At the top landing, there's a long hallway, dim and narrow, flanked by doors. According to the family's accounts, this was the path many of the episodes followed. Shadow figures moving, doors slamming, and one of the daughters being hurled down the stairwell. We paused at the top. Rugg pointed his flashlight toward the landing. The beam illuminated a faded picture on the wall, a portrait of a young woman who once lived here, long before our investigation. It stared back at us in ghostly silence. "Every story lists this hallway," I said. "Let's walk it slowly." We did. Our steps echoing. I half expected a presence to drop in behind us, or a window to slam, or a whisper to slide past our ears. Nothing. But the stillness was louder than anything else. At the end of the corridor, a door stood slightly ajar. Historical notes stated this opened into a small room known as the Master's Study, the purported origin point of many disturbances. I nudged it open. Inside was an old closet with slatted wood doors and peeling paint. The air inside the room was cooler still. I raised the temperature logger. 1 degree drop. Not much by typical standards, but after the subtle shifts we'd already felt, it registered. Sketch flashed his flashlight around. "Look at this," he said, pointing to the floor. There were scuff marks, uneven, triangular, leading away from the wall, disappearing under the closet door. He measured them. The marks dated from decades ago, but they looked fresh. My chest tightened. This wasn't simply history. Something had passed through this space recently. Then the directional mic near the closet picked up voices. Not loud, but a low murmuring, a voice just beyond hearing. We replayed it. "Leave now." The words were barely audible, but the tone, soft yet firm, hit us like a warning. We exchanged glances. The kind of look people give when they realize they've crossed a threshold. Our mission was to investigate, to document, to report. But the house didn't want witnesses. It wanted silence. We left the room, slowly, deliberately. The tall windows rattled once as we passed through the landing. Rug's flashlight beam flickered. Downstairs, the living room, once bright with afternoon sun, was swallowed in twilight. We shut all cameras, stored our gear, and prepared to leave. None of us spoke as we gathered in the entryway. Outside, the air felt lighter again. The house behind us sat quietly on its frontage, unremarkable, yet everything about it had changed. Walking away, I looked back at the upstairs windows. For a moment, a dark shape passed behind the glass. A flash of motion, gone before I could register it fully. I swallowed hard. "Tomorrow night," I whispered, "we return." Because the investigation wasn't just about the past anymore, it was about what was still here. Whispers in the empty hallway. The first hour inside the house felt strangely quiet. Not peaceful, just watchful. As if the walls themselves were adjusting to our presence. The deeper we moved into the home, the more I felt a pressure building in the air. It wasn't dangerous, but it was undeniable, like stepping into a room that someone had just left. We reached the bottom of the staircase, the same staircase mentioned repeatedly in the old case notes. According to reports, this was where most of the strange sounds had been heard. Soft steps, shifting weight, or something brushing against the wall when no one else was around. "Be careful on the stairs," I warned quietly as our cameraman swung his light up toward the landing. "Why?" One of the guests laughed nervously. "Afraid the house is going to jump scare us?" "Not the house," I said. "Just the history." They went silent. As we climbed, each step groaned under the weight, but the sound wasn't consistent. Some steps creaked louder than others, too loud. As if responding to us, not supporting us. At the top of the stairs, a narrow hallway stretched out, dimly lit by a lamp someone had left on earlier. Something about that hallway stopped all of us. It was tight, long, and lined with old framed pictures, landscapes, portraits, and one unsettlingly empty frame with a broken hook. No one mentioned it, but we all saw it. "Okay," Rug whispered, his voice low. "I don't like this hallway." "Same," Sketch said. "Feels like it's watching." We took slow steps forward. The floorboards here were older, tighter, more unpredictable. One step sounded normal. Another popped sharply. And then, a soft thump behind us. We all froze instantly. "You heard that, right?" Sketch breathed. "I heard something," Rugg said. "It wasn't from us," I added. But there was no one else upstairs. We continued toward the master bedroom, the room that had drawn the attention of investigators decades earlier. Not because of danger, but because people reported feeling an overwhelming presence there. Some described it as heavy. Others said it felt like someone was standing in the room with them when no one was. As we reached the door, the air shifted subtly, cooler, stiller, like stepping into a place untouched by time. The room felt almost preserved. Old wallpaper, a simple dresser, and a closet door with a faded brass handle. Sketch exhaled shakily. "I don't know why, but this room, yeah, something's up." We stood still for a moment, listening. The house answered with silence. Our cameras rolled as we approached the closet, one of the most historically significant locations in the entire case. Researchers from the 80s had spent hours documenting unusual readings near this exact spot. Temperature fluctuations, EMF spikes, and a consistent feeling of static in the air. Not violent, not harmful, just unexplainable. "You want to open it?" Rugg asked Sketch. Sketch hesitated for a long moment, the light trembling slightly in his hand. "Yeah," he finally whispered. He reached out and slowly pulled the handle. The door creaked open, revealing nothing but old coats, empty hangers, and dust drifting in the lamplight. "See?" he said with a shaky laugh. "Totally normal." A soft click echoed from somewhere behind us. We all spun toward the hallway. A single picture frame on the wall had tilted. And it had done so just seconds after Sketch opened the closet. Nobody touched it. Nobody was near it. It didn't fall, it simply shifted. That tiny movement was enough to pull every breath from our lungs. "Guys," Rugg whispered, "is someone downstairs?" We listened closely. No footsteps. No voices. Just a faint vibration running through the wall behind the frame, like a quiet hum of electricity. The history of this house wasn't dramatic because of danger. It was dramatic because of patterns. Little things. Small movements. Whispers. Memories trapped in wood and air. And now we were experiencing the first one. As we regrouped in the hallway, one of our guests suddenly stopped walking.
"Hold on," he said.
"Do you feel that?" We all paused. The atmosphere around us shifted again, just slightly, but enough to raise the hairs on our arms. It wasn't cold. It wasn't warm. It was just aware. Rugg swallowed hard. Okay, whatever this is, it doesn't feel hostile. Just curious. We agreed. And then, from the far end of the hallway, a soft clicking sound echoed. Light, deliberate, unmistakable. The kind of sound a door makes when someone gently pushes it closed. The room that remembers. The door at the end of the hallway clicked shut with a softness that felt intentional. We froze. Every flashlight beam shot toward the sound, slicing through the dim corridor like thin blue blades. Sketch took a slow step backward, bumping into the wall. "That wasn't wind," he whispered. We all knew it wasn't. The air in the hallway was perfectly still. No draft, no vents, no open windows. The house had moved on its own. "Okay," I said carefully, "let's document everything exactly as it happens. No assumptions. No exaggerations." Rugg nodded slowly. "This is the most activity we've had so far." We approached the door cautiously. It wasn't locked, just closed. A thin strip of darkness peeked out beneath it. I placed my hand on the handle and waited for the cameras to adjust. "You ready?" I whispered. "Go," Sketch said. I opened the door. It swung inward smoothly, revealing a small guest room bathed in muted blue shadows. The only piece of furniture inside was an old wooden dresser beneath a curtained window. A single framed photograph sat on top of it, angled slightly, as if someone had bumped it earlier. "Hold on," Rugg said, stepping inside. "This picture wasn't like this when we came through earlier." He was right. When we first toured the house, everything had been perfectly aligned. The homeowner told us the frames had sentimental value, so they kept them dusted and straight. Now this one was skewed. Sketch adjusted his camera. Something touched it, or brushed past it. We moved deeper into the room. The floor felt colder here, not freezing, just noticeably cooler than the hallway. I waved the temperature meter in a slow arc. A 2-degree drop flashed across the screen. "What's underneath this room?" Rugg asked. "The kitchen," I answered. "Where we felt that vibration earlier." We were making a pattern: kitchen, hallway, upstairs rooms. Whatever was here wasn't random. It was following a track. Or maybe we were following its track. Then, unexpectedly, the curtains fluttered. No breeze. No open window. No airflow. Just a single, soft movement, like someone had brushed their hand against the fabric. Sketch jumped back. "Nope.
Nope."
That moved. Rugg took a slow step forward, squinting. "Look at the light on the wall." We turned. On the far wall, faint and wavering, was the outline of something. Not a person, not a figure, but more like a shifting shadow. A ripple. As if the air itself had weight. It hovered for only a moment before dissolving into nothing. My breath caught in my chest. Not out of fear, but awe. We weren't witnessing anything dangerous, only unexplained. Maybe residual energy. Maybe environmental shifts interacting with the old wiring. Maybe the memories of the house playing themselves back. Whatever it was, it wanted to be acknowledged. Sketch exhaled shakily. "Okay, we need to get this on the recorder." We set a digital recorder on the dresser and let the room settle. The device blinked red, capturing every sound, every vibration, every whisper. "Is anyone here?" Rugg asked the room, keeping his tone calm and respectful. "We're not here to disturb you. We're here to learn." Silence stretched out. Then, a faint tap behind us. We turned sharply as the closet door, barely cracked open before, drifted wider by an inch or two.
We stared at it.
No one moved. No one breathed. Sketch whispered, "Did anyone touch that?"
No, I said.
Not one of us. Rugg swallowed hard and approached the closet. He pulled the door fully open and shined his light inside. Nothing but an empty wooden rail and a few old boxes stacked neatly on the floor. But the air coming from inside was noticeably colder than the rest of the room. It's like the temperature drops in specific places, he murmured. Not everywhere. Just where something could have been. He didn't finish the sentence. We spent the next 20 minutes documenting readings, taking photographs, recording the shifts in temperature, and marking the unusual sounds. Every piece of evidence was subtle, small changes, faint noises, fleeting shadows, but collectively, they painted a clear picture. This house was not empty. It carried its history in every wall. Every family that lived here left an imprint. Every moment of fear or confusion or unanswered questions echoed through the corridors. And we were listening. As we prepared to leave, I took one last look up the staircase. The hallway lights flickered once, gently, almost softly, before stabilizing. A quiet goodbye. Outside, the night air felt lighter, cleaner. We loaded our equipment, each of us silently replaying the moments inside. Rugg finally broke the silence. We have to come back, he said. There's more here. We're only scratching the surface. He was right. This investigation wasn't over. Whatever lived inside that house, memory, energy, history, it was waiting. And we would return.